works, so don't hit record yet. Is it on? Are you going to advance or am I going to? Okay. So guys, this class is going to be recorded. So if you ask, let me finish a segment and then I'll ask, are there any questions? You can ask the question. I'm probably going to have to repeat it back just so that we get it on the recording. I don't like standing in front of a podium. I'm a walker. I'm a twitcher. So this is really very difficult for me. Plus, I can't see the PowerPoint. So I have to do it the old-fashioned way. Maybe I should put my glasses on. Oh, and they're filthy. Okay, we're going to get started. November 8th, 2022 general election. My name is Jen. Welcome to the Board of Elections. I'm going to be doing your class tonight or today with my coworker, Jacob. So the first thing that we are going to do is swear you in. I need you to raise your right hand. I'm going to read the oath to you, and then you will say, I do. Do you attest to faithfully execute the office of election official and will, to the best of your ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Rhode Island, and all the election laws and rights of the people thereof? Welcome back, returnees, suckers. Couldn't have done the election, the primary without you. We appreciate you coming back. And for those of you that this is your first election, welcome aboard. First and foremost, vote. You cannot leave the polling place to vote. Once you check in, you cannot check out. So I recommend that you go to your local city or town hall and vote early. Early voting started October 19th and it goes all the way through Monday, November 7th at 4 p.m., regular business hours. The only time you can vote in your polling location is if that is where you normally would vote, and you would do it on your break, your lunch, or your dinner. If you decide to go to early voting, please try the express vote. That is our ADA marking device. I'm going to go over that a little bit more later, but I want you to be familiar with how it works. Polling place hours of operation are 7 a.m. and close at 8 p.m. except for New Shoreham. They all get to sleep in. They open at 9. Please be at your polling location by 6 a.m. It's going to be dark when you get up. Why do we need you to be there at 6 o'clock? Because you need to open the equipment. Your supervisors need to assemble or turn on their poll pads, put up signage. Your supervisors have been directed, if the moderator and clerk do not show up by 6:15, they're calling back to the Board of Canvassers. We had some people not show up at all. The show still goes on if people don't show up. So your Board of Canvassers need to know that in advance so that they can fill those positions. If something happens between now and the election and you find out that you can't work, please don't ghost them, let them know. I also want to remind moderators at 8 o'clock, you're going to say, ladies and gentlemen, the polls are now closed. If there's anybody in line with your supervisors, you're going to put an election official at the end of the line. You're going to process those people. Once that last voter places their ballot in the DS200 and exit the polling location, then the polls are officially closed. People are asking me, what clock do I use? I always recommend that you use your cell phone because it's an atomic time. So then you would open and close according to that. Equipment used at the polling location, we have the poll pad and a MiFi. That is one of the items that you would need to bring back to your Board of Canvassers, the DS200 and the express vote. What does the MiFi do? It connects your poll pads so that if John Brown is checked in on one, he's checked in off the other ones in your precinct. He's also checked off all the other poll pads throughout the state. So primarily your supervisors are using a poll pad, but clerks, you have one also. You don't check in people on them, you flag them as voting provisionally. The DS200 is the tabulator. We have it open over here. That's what it looks like when it's closed on the slide. That is what everybody who has marked a ballot places their ballot into. So at the end of the night, it's tabulated. As I said, the final item on the screen is the express vote. That is an ADA device that we have in all of our polling locations in our city and town halls right now. It's so that a person that maybe is disabled and cannot mark their ballot, the machine will do it for them. Once the ballot is marked, it still needs to be placed in the DS200 for tabulation. So what are the positions at the polls? Supervisor sounds like the head honcho, but looking at my slide, you'll see that it's actually on the bottom. The moderator/warden is the head election official. We call them wardens in the cities and moderators in the burbs. I'm going to always use the term moderator. So you manage the polling location and you're responsible for opening and closing all the polling place equipment and transmitting results at the end of the night. You oversee the DS200 and the express vote and assist voters with the equipment if necessary. You verify the polling place diagram and mark the 50-foot line outside the polling location. You oversee all the other positions in the polls. Clerks, you're up there with them. You work hand in hand with your moderator. You address voter issues using affirmation forms and provisional ballots. You're responsible for accounting for all ballots sent to the polling place using the election certificate and the void bag. You're responsible for general paperwork. You will have voters that have an issue on their voter file coming over to you in the course of the day. You'll be working with them one-on-one, determining if whether they vote a ballot into the DS200 or if they're going to be voting provisionally. And finally, the supervisors. They check in voters using the electronic poll pad and issue a ballot after check-in. In the morning, they're responsible for putting up posters, sample ballots, signs on the door. They turn on the MiFi and the poll pads. They are the first people that interact with voters, but they are the lowest on the hierarchy chain. They finish their closing duties earlier than you do, but they stay with you and you all leave the polls together. Moderators, what are your opening duties? Locate your keys. You see in the picture, the keys are on the bottom. There's 3 keys on the key ring. You need to have those on your person the entirety of the day. You're going to need those to open the equipment in the morning and then to close them in the evening. They're found in your supplies from the Board of Canvassers, or they're dropped off to you by the police. Just depends on which city or town you're working in. Cranston moderators, some of you are going to go to City Hall between 5:15 and 5:45 in the morning to pick up the Board of Canvassers bag and those keys. You're going to verify the supply boxes and the equipment are labeled with the name of your polling location. So if you can see right here on the table here, I have a red and blue supply box. The red would hold your poll pads and your MiFi, and the blue would have all your paperwork, your ballots, etc. They're labeled. So it will have your precinct number on it and your polling location. The front of the DS200 will say the same. The bag that the express vote comes in will say the same. Check those things before you open them. If you have something mislabeled, you have the wrong equipment. You need to call your Board of Canvassers ASAP. The ballots in the blue supply box will only go into the machine designated for your precinct. So always check that first before you open anything. Once you verify that it's all correct, you're going to open the supply boxes and distribute the supply bags and the poll pads. Supply bags are labeled by position. So we have one that will say moderator, one that will say clerk, and one that will say supervisors. So moderators, you grab yours, give your clerk theirs, give your supervisors theirs. Once you open that red supply box, your supervisors will go over there, take out their MiFi, take out their cases, and they're going to start assembling that. Working with the clerk, you're going to verify the seals on the equipment. You're going to use the password found in the moderator's supply bag. It's item number 3 and it's lime green. And you're going to open the DS200 and the express vote in that order. Mark that 50-foot line from the polling place door using the measuring tape and chalk found in your supplies and verify your polling place diagram. And I'm going to go into more detail on those items shortly. Clerk, what are your opening duties? Working with that moderator, open those supply boxes. Using the serial and security seal certificate found in the clerk's bag, it is also item number 3. Verify with the moderator warden the seals on the equipment. Count your regular ballots and express vote ballots and record on the appropriate paperwork. Get your paperwork organized. I'll go into detail on that later in the presentation. During a lull, work with the moderator warden and fill in the closing seals numbers. The seals envelope containing new seals is in the moderator's bag. So on the screen, you will see that is a sample of the serial and security seals number. Guys, in your little 4-pack handout, that is the first item. So that's the first item, clerks, you're going to be looking for. As I said, it's item number 3 in your supply bag. So here's those seals and serial numbers. You're going to verify those before the polls open. You're walking around with the moderator. They're reading off the seals numbers and you're just checking them off on your certificate. So the supply box seals, you had to break those seals to be able to get your paperwork out. You don't throw those away. And to open those boxes, guys, you don't pull on those seals, you twist and they snap. So you're going to get those supply box seals. The DS200 serial number, it's on the computer lid. So before you fully open that, you read that off to your clerk. The USB drive door seal, once you open your DS200 and you put the computer lid up, it's a blue seal on the left-hand side. Your express vote serial number, it's on the upper left of the express vote, and the DS200 ballot door. That is either white, blue, or red. What we do before we send that equipment out, we make sure that ballot box is empty and then we seal it shut. It's going to stay sealed the entirety of the day. That's where the voted ballot drops into at the end of the day when the polls are closed and all the voters have gone. You're going to break that seal and you're going to remove those ballots and store them in a case. Once you've done your seals and serial certificate, you're going to, clerks are going to use your election certificate. It's the fourth item in your bag. You're going to count and verify the number of printed ballots sent to your precinct on the election certificate. You see, I have a red arrow in the middle of the certificate on the screen pointing to the number 400. Your ballots are pre-shrink wrapped in packages of 100. You just count the packages. If it says 1,200, how many packages should you have? 12. New is you're going to record the time that the polling place opened. That's what time you opened your doors to voters. Ideally, every single certificate that we receive back should say 7 a.m. Why did we have people voting at 6:45? I don't know. Somebody tell me. Why did we have a poll open at 7:55? Because no one showed up. We need to know those things. And the one that was opening early, everybody showed up. The moderator had opened the equipment and allowed 2 poll workers to vote early before the crowds. Honest mistake, but a huge no-no. No one can cast a ballot until 7 a.m. Once you've put the time down and you've counted your ballots, you're going to put this item away. You're not going to use this until the end of the night. Remember, you're going to give 1 package of regular ballots to each set of supervisors, replenish as needed. So you give them 1 package of shrink wrapped ballots. I want you to have them open it in front of you. I want them to flip it over and see that there's questions on the other side. Every election, a general election, when we have 2-sided ballots, after the election, I have voters call me and say, I didn't know there was questions on the back. Can I have my ballot back? So your supervisors during their training were told there was a little message on the bottom right-hand side of the ballot, says additional questions on the back. Repoint that out to them so that they can tell the voters when they check them in, there's questions on the front and the back. If you have local questions in your community, those are going to be highlighted in yellow. You're going to verify you have 1 box of express vote ballot cards. And inside of those is a package containing 250 ballot cards. For the primary, we gave you 50. That was the first time we used the equipment. We were trying to get everybody to use it. And I thank you for all your hard work. Everybody loved it. You promoted it well. Voters that used it in the primary will be using it again. Thus why we gave you 250 ballot cards this time around. I want you to give 3 express vote ballot cards to each set of supervisors and then replenish as needed. Why don't I want you to give them more? Too much stuff on their table, guys. It gets a little bit overwhelming. You know, we encouraged them to have a competition between each other to see who could get the most voters to use the express vote. At a minimum, we always need to have at least 5 voters use it. You will surpass that. Why do I say 5? If no one uses it, but maybe 1 disabled voter in your precinct, their ballot is slightly different than everybody else's, isn't it? It's a skinny ballot card. So when you empty the ballot machine at the end of the night, would you be able to see how that voter voted? We want to work together to make sure that we keep the confidentiality of any voter's vote private. So if we have at least 5, we have no idea then whose ballot is whose. So strive for 5. If you get 249, I'm a happy camper. You don't have to though. Okay. Help that moderator mark the 50-foot line. But moderators, if your clerk's busy in the morning getting all this done, you can grab any election official and go out there. In Cranston, Nick has people pre-mark it for you. But in the other cities and towns, you will need to use that chalk and measuring tape that is provided for you. Open the DS200. That's the first thing you're going to do, moderators, after you've verified the labels and the serial numbers. So you're going to take that lime green piece of paper out of your moderator's bag. Item number 3, you're going to go over to the machine with your keys. You're going to open the back, take the cord out, plug it into the wall, make sure there's a green light illuminated on the back. That means you're getting electricity. You go around to the front of the item. You're going to unlock it, unlatch it, read off that seal for your clerk if you haven't already. Put that screen up and it will boot up automatically within 10 seconds. If it doesn't boot up, put the screen down, go to the back, make sure the cord going into the little black box with the green light is snug. Sometimes it gets loose in shipping. You would then see the green light illuminate. If you still don't have a green light, that outlet you're using is a dud. You might have to plug in, use an extension cord and plug in somewhere else. If the screen still doesn't boot up, call your Board of Canvassers immediately. Your technicians have not come to your precincts yet. The Board of Canvassers has their phone number though. They have backup equipment. We'll be able to get over there, switch out that machine and have you up and running before the polls open. Just to remind you guys, the machine has on the back of it an opening guide. Flip it over and it's a closing guide. If you've never opened the machine before, have your clerk read the directions to you as you're going through the steps. There's only 9 steps with pictures. They're numbered and they have verbal directions also. While you're opening the machine, you'll see prompts that correspond to the directions on the screen. In your poll worker training manuals, we have the step-by-step directions also with pictures. So if you want to, you can review that before Election Day. Any questions on any of that? Yes.
Are the supervisors allowed to drop the ballot if we don't check that ballot?
They don't have to anymore. That's back in the old day that you opened them and you had to manually count them. We don't ask you to do that anymore. Okay. That's okay. They're weighed. So we account for discrepancies here. That's not anything that has to be done at the polls any longer. That's old school. Were issued in the machine? No. The machine tells us how many ballots went in there. You don't have to manually count those. Ooh, that could be a long night. We just want you to put them in the storage cases and seal them. Yeah, no counting of ballots, guys. But thank you for doing that in the past. They were probably an experienced moderator, warden from back in the day when we did things like that, and old habits die hard. So voters are going to receive a white ballot. Voters in Central Falls, Providence, Pawtucket, and Woonsocket will have a bilingual ballot. Voter will fill in the oval to the left of his or her choice. As I said, local questions are highlighted in yellow. If you see on the screen, you can see in the bottom right, state and local questions are on the back. You know how many people don't see that? So as I said, please remind your supervisors to let people know that there are questions on the back. Do voters fill in the oval? No. They put checks, X's, circle their choices. Moderators, you need to be 5 feet away from your DS200. If a voter does that and there's not enough filled in the oval, there's an error message that's going to come up on the screen. If they circled the name of the candidate instead of filling in the oval, or they circled yes, no, all the way down the ballot, it's going to come up on the screen as blank. There's nothing at all in the ovals. If they put a check or an X, and there's not enough there for the ballot to tabulate it, it will say unreadable marks. So you need to be standing by your DS200 the entire day saying, wait for the American flag, wait for the American flag, record it on your phone and hit play if you so desire, because that means the ballot has been taken. All right. If you need to step away from your DS200 because you're going outside to deal with unruly candidates or an issue at your supervisor's table, have somebody like your clerk step over and say, wait for the American flag, wait for the American flag. There's two trays on the DS200. The top tray is for your express vote ballot cards because those are slightly smaller than a pre-printed ballot. And then the bottom tray would be for the regular pre-printed. Would the bottom tray take an express vote ballot? Yes, it would, if they put it in perfectly straight. But if they put it in a little crooked, then you could have a jam. So we don't want that. That's another reason that you should be standing 5 feet away from the express vote, directing people where to put the ballot. Notice there are 2 green arrows, but they don't notice that. So we give you a little blue sign that explains once again where to put the ballot, to no avail. They will walk over to your machine, lift up that blue sign and try to find a slot to put it into. So sometimes you have to stand over there and actually physically walk over and give them directions on where the ballot goes. You had a question?
Yeah, for the primary, I had several Spanish voters.
Mm-hmm. No, there's the communities I listed. By law, you have to have a certain percentage of your population speak that language before that is provided to them. And they don't meet that criteria. That's Department of Justice rules. Ballots are different in every single town, in every single precinct. So that's the law. Yes, they could bring an interpreter if they so desire, if somebody is in your precinct that speaks Spanish, but the law says we provide English ones unless the population meets a certain criteria. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Technology is a beautiful thing. If they want to use the Google Translation app and they have a phone and can do that, perfect. So the express vote. The express vote is available to assist a voter who may have trouble marking the ballot, though any voter may use the express vote, and many did. Supervisors have been directed to encourage voters to use that express vote. When you open your polling place, your express vote should always be ready to be used by voters. The express vote marks the ballot at the voter's direction via the touchscreen or audio, voice, and keypad. Visually impaired voters should be directed to reinsert the ballot into the express vote and use the headphones to validate the ballot was marked correctly. Marked ballots must then be placed in the DS200 for tabulation. So the express vote ballot card is a blank ballot card. Voters' choices are printed onto the ballot after the voter has made his or her choices on the express vote. The ballot is returned to the voter and reviewed by the voter for accuracy. So there's a summary screen on the express vote that they can review. Once it's printed, they should review it one more time before they put it into the DS200. As I said, the DS200 has a tray specifically for the express vote ballot. You're going to receive one box of 250 ballot cards. Unused blank ballot cards will need to be counted by the clerk at the end of the night and placed in the white box that they were shipped in. So you can see that little white box in the picture. The front of the box must be completed by the clerk, and there is now a spot on the election certificate to record how many were used. This information may be found on the DS200 prior to closing or on the totals tape. So you get 250. Do I expect, and you only use maybe 10, do I expect you to count the remaining ones on the table? No. Let's say you're not sure how many you used. People were using them left and right. On the DS200, guys, where the public count is, it shows you how many ballots went into the machine. To the left of that is a little blue square, has a magnifying glass on it. If you tap it, it will show you how many regular ballots went into the machine and how many express vote ballots went in. Because clerks, you need to record that on your election certificate now. So if I gave you 250 and it said 25, how many did you use? 25. I would always, though, before I record anything, check your void bag. Somebody could have voided an express vote ballot. We want to know how many were used and you recorded on the white box. Voters may have a disability, which makes it more difficult for them to check in or complete their ballot. We had a hearing impaired couple come into the polling location and they were having a hard time communicating with the supervisors. So they were writing questions and the supervisors were responding in kind. If a visually impaired voter comes in, they've usually brought somebody with them. The express vote should be offered to them. A supervisor said to me that they wanted to guide the person's hand to the line to sign their name. I'm like, you always ask a voter, may I touch your hand and guide you there, or give them verbal instructions. You never ever touch a voter. If you are dealing with a voter that's in a wheelchair, guys, you don't talk down to them. You squat down so that you are face to face talking to them so they're not looking up at you. Any questions on that? You can find more information on dealing with voters with disabilities in the chapter covering that in your poll worker manual. Sometimes you'll have a voter come in and they say, I absolutely need help in the booth. This is all overwhelming. You're going to grab a pair of supervisors to go to the booth with that voter after they've checked them in. Usually that voter wants the ballot read to them. So they would start with the first contest, tell them what it is, read through the choices, listing the party affiliation of the candidate, and the voter would say, I want you to mark this for me. That supervisor marking the ballot will show the voter and their partner that it's voted according to the voter's wishes. Does the voter have to mark the entire ballot? Absolutely not. Only the contest that they're interested in. Once they have cast their vote, then the supervisors will escort them over to the DS200. The voter will put the ballot in there. What are they waiting for? The American flag. Once that American flag comes up, the supervisors will go back to the supervisors table and continue checking in voters. During their class, they're told they don't go back and discuss the voters' choices amongst each other, share with anybody else, don't go home and talk about it. This is a service that we provide to our voters. We act in a nonpartisan manner. We are courteous, kind. We treat the voter how we would want to be treated if this was us in that situation. Here is your voting diagram. So I want you to notice that if you have a hard time reading a diagram, find out where the door is. And then look at your map, stand by that door, and then you'll get your orientation down. So you will probably have party checkers. I'm sure many of you that worked the primary had those. Sometimes there's just observers in the general election, but if you have a tight race, party checkers will be there. Do the supervisors allow people to go over and check in party checkers first? Absolutely not. When a voter is checked in with the supervisors, if the name and address matches, the supervisors are required to announce that in a loud and clear voice. That's for the party checkers to mark the voter off of their paperwork. The reason for that is elections are open meetings. Anybody has the right to know who is attending an election and participating. So we're required to do that. The party checkers use that information. You'll see them coming in shifts. Sometimes they leave around 5 o'clock. They're getting on the phone to call the voters that didn't show up and encouraging them to get down and vote. So the people come in, check in with the supervisors, clerks. Sometimes you're lucky enough to have your own table. If you're sitting, your spot is sharing a table with these supervisors, make sure your this big blue box is next to you or behind you. That's where the ballots are, and you're responsible for distributing those in the course of the day. Don't let your supervisors go into your blue box to get regular ballots or express vote ballots. So the voters will check in, go to the booth. On the far right of the booth run, you'll see 2 handicap booths. We have spreaders on those so that they're lower. So if somebody was in a wheelchair, they could roll up to the booth and use the table to mark their ballot. Directly behind the last handicap booth, sideways, is the express vote, and it does have a hood on it. And I'll show you that when we do the tutorial a little bit later. The reason being it's sideways is there's the ability to zoom in, zoom out on the screen, change the contrast. So if somebody has the zoom on and it wasn't sideways with the hood on it, people could go by and see how people are marking the ballot. Notice that the DS200 is in the far right, in the middle of the room, and then the people put their ballot in there and then exit. I do want you to notice that everything behind the supervisors is the voting area. The only people allowed in that voting area are election officials and voters that have checked in and are going to mark their ballot. Occasionally, you will have overzealous campaigns come in and they're saying, thank you so much for helping. I'm just going to go over to that machine and see how many ballots got put in it. They are not allowed back there. Supervisors should be letting the moderator know a candidate or their representatives want to know how many ballots have been cast, and you can provide them with that information. They are not allowed in the voting area. Once you give them that information, they need to leave the polling place. They can campaign outside 50 feet away. Also notice on your map in the lower right, it's election day fixes. A lot of our buildings are older and we need to make them ADA compliant for the day. So if you're in an old building that has knobs, that's not ADA compliant. An ADA compliant lever is a lever knob. That's how you would open the door. So you may see that you need a greeter or the door propped open. Sometimes you need to go look to see if there's a van accessible parking spot. If you go to a lot of our polling locations, you'll see plenty of handicap parking, but there isn't one that's labeled van accessible. So our boards of canvassers, we've gone to all of the polling locations throughout the state, noting those discrepancies. They would have to make it temporary, and so that a van with a wheelchair could open the side ramp and lower. So you just need to check that those are there. Your board of canvassers do a great job making sure of that, but checks and balance. You're just making sure that it's done. If you see any discrepancies or anything that you think that would hamper the disabled voter coming into the polling place, let your board of canvassers know. So my returnees, I do not make you, if you worked the primary, I do not make you stay for the entirety of the class unless you want the pleasure of my company and Jacobs. But there are some things that I need to go over with you to tell you that have changed. If you have more than one DS200, and some of you may, you must open both of them. One is not a backup. It's not a spare. You'll open one, walk over, open the other one. Store the ballots from these machines separately. The machines are labeled A and B. Your storage cases should be also. If they're not, mark them as such. We don't intermingle those ballots. We do a risk limiting audit after the election, and we need to keep those separated. Your affirmation form and guide now has a cover sheet explaining when to use an affirmation form. 2 new codes have been added. Override code directions for a voter that has moved is bundled with this packet. The provisional packet now has a cover sheet explaining when to use a provisional application and a provisional ballot. You're no longer going to process voted by mail or emergency ballot processed provisionals on the poll pad. You're only going to do the application only. As I said earlier, you're going to receive 250 express vote ballot cards. Election certificate has that box for the express vote ballot cards. And finally, you're going to have 5 totals tapes and then 1 write-in tape. 5 of them. I want you to sign all 5. The write-ins go in a little envelope called write-ins. The easiest way to do this with the tapes, guys, is when you close your polls, you already have a tape on the machine, correct? Because when you opened it in the morning, you had a 0 tape. And it listed every contest with a 0 going down the side because no one has cast a vote yet. When you close the polls, it does its configuration and then it starts printing the tapes. Read out the results from the first tape. When it gets to end of report, cut it. You now have 1 complete tape that has the opening and the closing. The next 4 tapes are just the closing numbers. Wait till you get to end of report, cut it. It will print the results again. When it gets to end of report, cut it. It's going to print it again. When it gets to the end of the report, cut it. 5 of them. And then the final one is the write-in. You have to sign all those, lay them out on the table, and make a line, moderator, clerk, supervisor, supervisor, and sign them. You now have 5 signed ones and a write-in, and now you can put them in those bags. It's much quicker. Yes, if you have 2 machines, you have to do it twice. Okay, so I wanted to say one more thing because clerks, I know it's very, affirmation and provisional can be extremely confusing. I got your back, kids. Clerk is my favorite position. Included with your affirmation packet I made a quick reference guide. Listed first will be all the reasons that you would use an affirmation. Listed beneath it would be all the reasons you'd use a provisional. So if somebody comes over to you and says, oh, those supervisors sent me over here, my name got changed, quickly look to see, oh, that's under affirmation, and then you can get that packet out of your blue box. If you have all this stuff laying all over your table, it's extremely overwhelming. The only thing you should really have on your table is your discrepancy report, your voided ballot bag, and this. Right there in your blue tote, right next to you, is a nice stack of affirmation forms, the guide, and the override code. And then next to that will be a nice package of provisional ballot applications with the stickers, the notice that you have to give, and one other thing I included. I gave you a cheat sheet. So in the PowerPoint on page 35, maybe not 35, maybe it's 23. Same thing, right? Right, 23. You'll notice I have a slide issuing a provisional ballot to a voter. And then the reason, voters not listed on the poll pad, voted by mail, or voted early appears. I wrote out what you would see on the poll pad and then steps. Are you looking at the slide number or the page number? Page number is in the lower right. Don't look at the slide number. Page 23. I blew up the slides, guys, with the steps for you. So if a voter comes over to you and says, your supervisor sent me over here. I did request a mail ballot, but I threw it away. You know they have to do a provisional. Go to the sheet that lists the reason and follow the steps. For those of you who are new, I'm going to give you an example after I release the returnees. I'll give you an example. There's 3 pages. I'll give you an example from each one. They're going to be right here. So there's a cover sheet that lists the reasons you do a provisional. Right behind it is the cheat sheet. Okay, I think that's helpful. I sat in front of a poll pad and went through every single scenario I could think of because I know it's difficult. I've been doing this for a long time. I could do it in my sleep, but you only do it every 2 years. So you can't screw this up. You just need to be able to, I think that gives you some confidence because I know you get nervous. How many of you have been using Find a Precinct on your poll pad? Okay, because I'm seeing, I keep asking and I'm like, wow, nobody knows what I'm talking about. I gave you in that little 4-pack handout, filled out affirmation guide. You're going to use Find a Precinct for a voter who's registered in your town and has moved to a new location in your town. The easiest way to find it is on your poll pad. And people are telling me they didn't know that was there. So Jacob, can you switch over to my poll pad? Yes, you can, but I'm going to show you that on the screen. Okay. Jacob, you just have to go over and switch it on the, I forgot we were recording this. He probably had to stop the recording. Would I be correct in that? Okay. So when you open your poll pad in the morning, guys, this is what you'll see. It'll say the date of the election, your polling place. Hit get started. So you're looking at that form. It's filled out by Sheldon Plankton. You have that in the handout. He had come over to you, and can you manually enter, Sheldon? He comes over to you and he says, yeah, I'm being sent over to you because I moved. You guys have my old address in there. Oh, I'm sorry, reset. I thought I did that this morning. So Mr. Plankton is going to tell you, I've moved to 11 Lawn Acre. This is what you're seeing though. He lives at 209 Beechwood Drive in Cranston. He now lives at 11 Lawn Acre. Okay, Mr. Plankton, you're registered in Cranston. You've moved to a new location in Cranston. I want to find out if you vote here or someone else. I want you to get the correct ballot with the people who represent you. You had him fill out the form. He told you, he checked off box number C, telling you he lived at his new address more than 30 days. You went down to the bottom and you had choices of 1, 2, 3, or 4 on the form to fill out. You checked off 2. The addresses are different, but they're in the correct town. You go to your guide. You have a guide in your packet. Are we recording this? It says C2. It says the voter will vote a full ballot at the precinct assigned to his or her new address. He's given you the new address, 11 Lawn Acre Ave. How do you know where to find him? Tap menu. Icons come up. See the one with the spyglass at the top that says precinct finder? Type in his new address, 11 Lawn Acre Ave. And as you start typing, choices come up. You don't even have to type in the whole thing. Keep going. Lawn Acre, acre, AC. Yes, it's one word. Go back. There it is right there, Jacob. Lawn Acre. Tap on it. Search. It gives you the name of his precinct and the directions on how to get him there. You'd fill that information out on the bottom of his affirmation form and send him on his way. When people are telling me, well, I didn't know about that, where were you sending people? Is this the easiest way to find where they go? And that's, you send him to his location with that completed pink form. If someone comes into your location clerks with that pink form, flag them over. And what do I want you to do with them? The first thing I want you to do is go to find a precinct and double check that other clerks work. When you type it in, the name of your precinct that you're working in is going to be what shows up if they did it correctly. That's old school. That's a backup. Street directory, paper street directory. Yes, that's it in case Armageddon occurs and your poll pad broke down. But I think this is quicker, don't you? I have some poll workers that have been doing this for years and don't like technology and insist on the paper. I'm like, it's so much easier. So if you determine that someone now votes in your precinct, no, go back. I'm not done. I'm going to show you. What if you're in that polling location where someone comes in with that pink form? What do you do with them now? Well, you've double checked them on your precinct. Find a precinct finder. They're in the right place. You're going to walk them over to the supervisors because you have to enter a password for those people to be able to check that person in. So get started. And I don't want you to do this fully. Okay. So we're going to use Eugene Krabs as this voter because Jacob likes SpongeBob. He came up with all of my. So when you give the supervisors that driver's license and they pull it up, it's going to be in gray. If it was Mr. Plankton, it's in gray because his old address doesn't vote here, but his new one does. You're going to tap the gear to the left of his name. You would enter the password. You would hit done. It's going to say, what do you want to do? You're going to allow the voter to vote. Are you sure? Are you smarter than the poll pad? I think you're smarter than a fifth grader. Yes. And now the supervisors can check him in. Everything I just told you, you will forget, correct? So on the peach piece of paper, bundled with your affirmation forms, is the password and step-by-step directions. I also screenshot it for you. It's in your PowerPoint. Easy peasy? No, I would never give you the password ahead of time, just the steps. So for newbies, I'm going to go into affirmations and provisionals more in depth, but for my people that have worked before, you don't have to suffer through it. I just wanted to let you know you had a cheat sheet. Jacob and I need to show you two little things on the equipment that has changed since the primary. I want to show you that blue icon so you know where to find the express vote count. A little thing I want to show you on the express vote. You do not have to stay for a whole tutorial on equipment, guys. I think you know how to open and close them. You know where to find your quick start guides. But if you'd like to stay with Jacob and I because you like the pleasure of our company, you are fully able to do so. Yep. Jacob, will they be able to see you in the video at the equipment, or you want to roll it over? If you don't feel like you need to see those two things, you may leave. That serial and seal certificate, I did go over it. That's what the clerk takes out of the bag, and you walk around and you check off the items. In a lull in the middle of the day, fill it in, moderator, clerk, and supervisor sign it. Just make sure the seals numbers that you are using at the end of the night, you put on the right items. No, that's just, I give everybody everything just as a refresher, things that people didn't fill out. Some people sealed things up and never recorded it anywhere. Don't do that. Don't be like those people. Or they didn't sign things. If things aren't signed, outside people that are checking our stuff, that are questioning if an election is valid, are like, well, this isn't signed, so it's not valid. So we want to address those. So Jacob, I'm going to have you open the DS200 and you can show them. I'm just going to point out before you do that very quickly the changes on the express vote. So those of you who worked before, come on over. Those of you who are new, you're going to come down and we're going to do a full tutorial after we let these people go.
So one thing I'm going to ask, so
because we're recording this class, as you guys can see, you're all on the recording right now. We back up so no one's on the screen here, so everyone can just see this when you go over it. I'm actually gonna pull over. There you go, you can all see me now. So if we can back up just a little bit. Yeah, the camera's behind you guys. And if you look up on the screen here to either behind me or whatnot, if we can just back up just a little bit or sit down, either one. Okay, so the major change with the express vote is that in the morning, when you guys take it out of the case here, you're going to take out the power cord, just this piece out of the front pouch. The pouch is underneath the name tag on here. Your headphones are also going to be in there for your machine. You'll notice that the cord here and the power bank, they're now Velcroed to the side. Don't remove them. Just leave it the way it is. Just flip out the kickstand in the morning, set it down, plug in the chunky end of your cord into your power box, and then you'll be able to plug it into an outlet. Again, when you plug it in, you'll know that you're getting power because the light will come on the front. Go to the side, the left-hand side, use your barrel key, open it up and hit the on button. Do you want to go forward with anything else or?
No, then I'll let I'm gonna
newbies.
do a full one with the new people.
What I
Who's
will-
new? How many? You guys, we're gonna do a few, longer tutorial.
What I will remind people who worked in the primary, though, there is no party cards for this election. So there's no yellow and blue cards. You don't have to accompany the voter and make sure they got the right party. There's only one ballot style for this election. So as soon as the voter puts it in, the first race is going to come up. I believe it's the governor race. Congressional. So it'll be their congressional district first. The first thing will come up. Again, they can use the headphones for it to read it out to them, so on and so forth. The other thing that I forgot to mention is on the side, there's their keypad. Just make sure it is visible and that the hood that you guys get is over the top. Obviously, if the hood was on the top, you guys wouldn't be able to see it right now. So that's why it's off. That's it for
Yeah, and I'll
the
go
express
over
vote.
a full tutorial for my newbies on how to use this machine. Okay, these guys already did it in September. It was user friendly, yes? Yeah. You're gonna vote on it again? Good. Make sure you let people know that who would benefit from using it, that we have it.
So the person that was saying about, the language barrier, they, they have different language.
Only in the communities that meet that criteria.
But there are some very crisp in there.
How did they get those?
I don't know.
I don't know.
We don't give them samples. So
Well, we work at the stadium. No, we work stadium. I mean, I can't speak to that. I didn't, I know that.
We have, I'll ask, but the only communities that should have had that option on there were Providence, Woonsocket, Central Falls. It's available, but
Pawtucket.
by law, we can only offer those ballots, as I said, to the communities that meet the threshold. So I'd have to go back and ask them if they put it on there by mistake
I was
or.
surprised that it was there, but it was there.
Okay.
anyway, so quickly reviewing the DS200 here. You're going to want to verify the zip tie that you have on the front. Make sure that that stays on throughout the day. That just lets you know that no one's been in the ballot box until the end of the night when you're going to cut it off. Also, verify your tag. Make sure that you have the right machine for your polling place. This is particularly important for polling places that have an A and a B side. I believe there's only one location in Cranston that's like that.
Western Hills, I believe.
Yes.
There's 2 precincts.
Yeah, so you can discuss with your city beforehand and they'll let you know if there is an A and a B side in your polling place. If that's the case, usually there'll be a separate set of moderators and clerks for each side. So going to the back, again, just as a reminder, just like this, you guys are going to have a similar vinyl bag on the outside of your machine. It has closing and opening instructions. If you forget everything you learned today, just remember that, like Jen said, we always give you directions for stuff and they're usually in plain sight like this.
I'm sticking around watching it now.
Okay, so hopefully you'll have it this time. So first thing we're going to use is our silver key. Again, on our keys, it's going to tell us what each key does and what it's for. We're going to open this up. We're going to then plug it in. I don't have an extension cord over here. Still one right there. This is just a review. We have to get to the part where it's actually open anyway, so I figure I might as well go over it with you guys. But
It's very quick, guys.
Yeah.
It doesn't look long to open up, so.
we have to open to get to the part where it's actually new. So anyway, so once you plugged in, if we were quiet, we would have heard the machine chime. That lets you know that's connected to power. If you missed the little chime, there's a green light on in there. Again, just shows you that you are connected. That's important because as Jen mentioned in her presentation, if we're not connected to power, the screen's just going to remain black. It's not going to turn on. So we're going to unlock the front here. Cover's going to lift up. My clerks on the right-hand side, that's where another one of your serial numbers are. Again, we're going to be reminded that the machine has to be plugged in order to turn on here. There will be a sticker mounted over the door. Again, my clerks, that's going to be another thing that you're going to want to check in the morning. The machine's going to start up again, finally, keep saying again, but to stress what Jen was saying, that the ballots all go to the same place. This tray just directs them or lines them up properly at all, and it goes through the same scanner. It's all read the same way. So if voters ask you a question about that, the only thing that's different about the two ballots is the size. What else do I have for you guys?
I just want them to see the blue icon.
Blue icon, that's it. So we're just waiting for the blue icon to come up.
Just also want to let you know, guys, when your totals take print, the number of express vote ballots and regular ballots also shows up on there.
Right.
But to get this information at 7:59, so that you can fill out your election certificate and then do your vinyl bags and skedaddle in a sooner method, is always good because, as you know, your supervisors are breathing down your neck. They want to get out because their closing activities are fewer than yours.
Which is why it's important if you do have supervisors, well, you will have supervisors, but assign them duties at the end of the night. Like you can have some help you take the ballots out of the bottom of the machine. Some are obviously going to be cleaning up the signs that they post in the beginning of the day, the sample ballots. Assign them things to do so that way they at least check in with you after they finish stuff. So that way they don't run away on you.
So you always have to put an election code into the DS200 and the express vote, same code. Where do you find it? Moderator's bag, lime green paper, item number 3 in your bag. The graphics, guys, on the DS200 and the express vote are the same because they're made by the same manufacturer.
Something about the graphics though, you can tell if your machine is running on battery because there's a little animation that's going to play on the screen. It's going to stop playing that animation, and it will also be beeping at you every so often. So some people ask why the screen's frozen. Usually the screen's frozen because you're not plugged in anymore. So again, in the morning, you're going to print out your configurations report. We're going to want to leave that attached to the machine. And we're going to hit open poll, and it's going to print out a 0 tape for us. Make sure you actually read and verify the 0 tape with the moderator, the clerk, as well as 2 supervisors. As you guys know, you should just roll up the tape because it does have to remain attached. You can paper clip it and then just leave it on the side there. Yep.
Yes, signed by the moderator, clerk, pair of supervisors. Always use the same supervisors for everything, guys. Then you're just dealing with 2 sets, with 2 people.
Yeah, again, you're delegating them duties. So that way they know they have to stick around to do certain things. Same people in the morning will do it again at night. Sometimes people wait at the screen before 7. Just hit that you're ready to go when you're ready. So that way you don't have to remember to come back to the machine. So ballots for the DS200, doesn't matter which way they go in. I'm just putting an express vote card in to show you guys. That is the American flag that Jen was talking about earlier. That's actually good. This one is also blank. Let's see.
You can show them the icon right now.
Yeah, I
It
can.
says 0.
Well, it says 1 because I just put 1 in. So it's going to be hard to see, but next to the public count to the left, there's a tiny square. If you look real close, it has a magnifying glass in it. We tap on that, the screen's gonna come up. It's gonna tell us how many of each type went through. So it's gonna say DS 200 ballots, which again are these traditional ones that you guys are used to. And then it's going to say express vote cards, which are those slim cards. Again, for my clerks, just ask your moderator to tap on that button before they close, so that way you can get a final count. If they forget, the first section of the results tape has this same breakout. It prints it out one more time, just so that way you can see it after you close the machine down. You don't have to, because it's all these ballots are counted the same. So whatever your public count is, you can just give that to them. If somebody asks specifically how many people use the express vote, you can give them that. I don't know why they would do that, but you could give it to them potentially. So
The number is always displayed at the top.
yes, the public count is always displayed at the top. Some people may ask, there's another number below that. That's the protected count. Think of it like the odometer on your car. There's a trip and then there's the lifetime of your car. The protected count is that lifetime count. That's more for us here at the office because certain items wear out in these machines. So we want to know how many ballots have gone through the machine. So we know when those wear items need to be replaced. So just like your car, yes. Yep, so. Do you want to?
Returnees, you're done.
Yep.
Good luck, guys. Thank you so much. Can't do elections without you. So newbies, come on down and we're gonna
Yeah.
give you more of a tutorial.
See, I didn't have that on my machine.
Are you comfortable?
Opening.
Let Maria
I mean,
know
they're good.
you're working for Cranston.
I hope that's gonna be there when I get there.
It might have got ripped off. I'm shipping, as you can see this one. Little beat up.
Oh,
Now
you
it
also
gets
didn't
fun,
mention,
guys, because
uh,
everybody's
the,
gone and now you get more
When I was
information.
at during the primary, you like to have the MiFi put there, right?
It doesn't have to be wherever there's better service, but this is a safe spot to start. So if you notice that you don't have very good service with
I
it,
had, it worked for me,
then
so.
then you can
Perfect.
leave it there. That's fine. That way you know where it is at all times.
Yeah.
So. Okay.
So these guys, I think they could see on the screen that there's an opening guide on the
Yeah.
back of the machine. He opened the back of the machine. He left the flap open on the back, guys. There's a computer in there.
And you
Needs
don't
to
want to
remain.
pinch the wire either.
Yeah.
If you would close it, you'd pinch the
So
wire.
you
So.
can, if you want to, were you able to see where he put the express vote in? You were able to see where he put a regular ballot in? Okay. You saw the American flag come up on the screen? You will be standing there all day long. Wait for the American flag. Wait for the American flag. Remember, between opening and closing, you have 13 hours. If you're nervous, closing steps, you can look at the quick start guide. They're also in your coworker manual. So you can peruse those before election day, so you're somewhat comfortable with the machine. So you can show them a few more and then shut it down, show
All right.
them how to close it.
So at times, the reasons why we tell you guys to wait, to instruct the voters to wait for the American flag, because if they don't fill out the ballot properly, it's going to give them an error message. The most common ones that you guys are going to see are what I'm about to show you right now on the screen. So in this case, it's telling the voter that they cast a blank ballot. As Jen said earlier in this class, though, it's not always the case. Sometimes they put X's through their choices. They've circled their choices. So the machine can't read that they filled in a bubble. They did make a choice. It's just the machine can't identify it. If this is the case, I tell the voter, just say, did you mean to cast a blank ballot? If not, please tap the return button and you can get it back and go back to the booth and then please fill in the bubbles accordingly and instruct them that there are directions on each ballot as to how to fill in the bubbles. Sometimes though, a voter may just be in a hurry. They just want to leave. They'll hit cast anyway. You never want to make this choice for the voter because you don't want them to then blame you for a choice that they made because you touched the screen. So you always want the voter to make the choice. As I said, in most cases, they're just going to return it. Odds are they just circled their choices instead of filling in the bubble. So just send them back to the booth to fill in the bubbles and then they'll come back to you. For a blank, you won't need to, because there's nothing wrong with their ballot that will prevent them from correcting it.
Even if they like put X's over
They
it.
just got to fill in the bubble completely. So,
I work primary, but I just.
yeah.
you didn't have to.
You didn't have to. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you just have more in your voids bag, but for blanks, you don't have to. A reason that you would want to, though, however, is if you get an error message that looks like this. I know you guys are a little far away, so it's hard to read, but it says that there's been an overvote. In this case, the person overvoted for their favorite US beach. As we know, you can only have one favorite, so you have to narrow it down to one. You can explain this to the voter, just say that they picked two for something that they can only pick one, and you can tell them the race. But again, you want them to make the choice. Inform them that if they do cast this ballot, that their vote for this race won't count because we don't know which one they actually wanted. So at this point, most of the time, the voter is going to hit return on their ballot. At this point, the voter has an option. They can go back to the booth and just fill in all the ovals to obscure what they actually voted for their privacy. That's up to them. They don't have to do that. You can just offer it to them. Then what they're going to want to do is give the ballot to the clerk. The clerk is going to void it and put it into the voided ballots bag and issue them a new one. Hopefully they will get that one correct. However, it does happen where people make mistakes multiple times. Just again, tell the voter that they're only allowed for a blank number of votes for whatever race they're doing. Usually it's for town council races where there's like a pick 7. People pick, 8 instead by accident. Again, just try your best to inform the voter on how many choices they're supposed to make. So what else do we want to touch on? Anything specifically? No.
The scenarios.
There's a third message that is very rare, but you might see it's called unreadable marks. In that case, it's just going to spit out the ballot no matter what. Again, usually this happens when the voter doesn't mark the ballot correctly. They're circling their answers. If you get an unreadable marks error, just void the ballot and give the voter a new one. So.
Sometimes, guys, unreadable marks is when they put a check or an X in the bubble, and it notices that there's something there, but not enough for it to tabulate. So when it is returned to them, ask them, did you put checks or X's? And if they go, yeah, how'd you know? You don't have to issue them a new ballot then. That they can still go back and fill it in. But if they've defaced the ballot so much and they need a new ballot, then they would be, have that one voided and they would get a new one from the clerk. One other thing I wanted to let you know, let's say somebody is checked in, they decide to use the express vote, they mark their ballot, it came back to them, and that is, they made a mistake. It said, oh no, I made a mistake, I pressed the wrong thing. That's a void. But we want them to go to the booth too and scribble out because their answer is printed. We want them to scribble out their answer because we would clearly be able to see how they voted.
If they can. If someone's visually impaired, obviously they're not going to be able to do that. You can offer to do it for them. Again, they might not ask you to do that, but you can offer it to them. So.
Some people say, I don't care if you see how I voted. They say that a lot.
So.
And so regardless of which type of ballot, you're going to write void and just issue them a new one.
Yep. Okay. So that's everything that you're going to see throughout the day. Again, like 90% of your ballots are going to go through no problem. Again, if any of those errors come up, just inform the voter of what the error means and then ask them to make the choice as how they want to proceed, either casting the ballot or returning it. And so that way they can fix it. So at the end of the night, once you're done, actually, before I get into that, one last thing I want to go over with you guys. If you have a jam in your machine for whatever reason, there will be a message that comes up on the screen. It will just say that you should contact an election official and that you can't count any ballots at this time. If that happens to you, contact your state technician. The technician is someone that our office hires, and we assign them multiple polling places around the state. Usually they have 3 to 4. They will be around to assist you with this jam, and they'll clear it for you. However, in the meantime, what you're going to want to do is loudly tell everybody in the polling place that there is a jam. Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to run ballots through the machine at this time, but you can store the ballots for people if they need to leave. You're going to do that by your silver key to open up this middle compartment here. This middle compartment does not connect to the ballot box below it. It is just a storage compartment for emergencies like this. On the front of this, there will be this metal door. You're just going to flip it down. Close the main flap. And now if somebody comes and they don't have time to wait, say they're on their lunch break, they only get 30 minutes, they've already been there for 15, they can't wait for the technician to come to cast their ballot through the machine. They're just going to store their ballot in that top section there. Again, some voters may not feel comfortable using this option. That's fine. They can sit there. They can wait until the technician comes to fix the machine. However, once the machine is fixed, again, you'll see this animation again. Your technician's going to inform you. You guys are good to go. If you have any ballots in that compartment, you should feed them now. Again, you're going to want to loudly inform everybody in the polling place so that way no one can question what you're doing, that there was previously a jam, it's been fixed, and you're going to run through all the ballots that were stored from voters who had to leave and weren't able to cast their ballot through the machine while there was the jam. So again, you're gonna go in here, open this up, reach inside. In case we only had one ballot, you're gonna wanna flip up flat there, so that way now no one can put a ballot into that compartment. And then you're going to feed through all the ballots that are in that compartment until you have none left. If you receive one of those error messages at that point, that is the only time that you are going to make a decision on those, and you're always going to hit cast. At that point, the voter is no longer in the polling place, so they're not there to tell you what their intent was. We know that their intent was to vote. Unfortunately, they're not there to fix the issue, so we have to just hit cast anyway. So we're just going to hit cast. Again, the voter had to leave, but it was their intent to vote that day. So. All right, that's for jams. Do I have any other questions on starting and then procedures during the day for anybody who's here? It's pretty straightforward. Again, you guys, 90% of the time, as Jen said, you're just going to be saying, wait for the American flag. Voters are going to come in, cast their ballot, and it'll be counted. So at the end of the night, what you're going to do is on the left-hand side of the machine, next to your tape, there's another slot for your barrel key. Again, that's the one with the black handle. You're going to open it up and you'll expose the USB drive. In this compartment here, which Jen will show you on the PowerPoint in a little bit, there's a close poll button. It's white. You're just going to tap on it briefly, and then it's going to ask you if you want to close the poll. At this point, once you move past here, that's the point of no return. So if you forgot to check your compartment down there, if you used it, or if you have somebody who's still in the voting booth that you didn't notice, you're going to want to hit go back, so that way you can run their ballot through before you close the machine. But again, make sure you check those and make sure you check the booths before you get to this point. So once we've checked everything, we can hit close poll. It's going to count up all our results. And then it's going to start printing our tape. If you forget to hit that button, again, to the left of the public count, on this first section of tape here, it tells you how many different types of ballots that were sent through. So they'll say, again, DS200 ballots, then underneath it will say express vote cards. I'll have the number. You will have to read out these results at the end of the night. So in this case, so we have vote for favorite dog breed. We have 0 votes for Labrador, 0 votes for Bulldog, 1 vote for Beagle. You will have to read that out. There is a write-in total as well. You'll have to read out the number of write-ins, and then later there will be a write-in receipt as well, and you'll have to read out the name of all those write-ins. We give you permission to say whatever dirty words people write in on the ballot. Again, so this tape, I only print one because of saving paper. We do a lot of these training classes, but yours are going to print 5. Every single time you see the signature sheet, you guys, signature section, you guys are all going to sign, and that's the end of the report. That's when you can cut the tape. And after the 5th report, that's when you're going to get that write-in tape that I just mentioned. So, while you guys are reading out the results and cutting up the tapes, it's automatically going to send the results to our office. It essentially just sends a text message to our office. Something to note, If you don't have good service, like here, we have pretty good cell service. If you fail to modem, ask one of your poll workers, one of your coworkers who's with you, if they have Verizon. This machine, it uses Verizon to send that text message. So if they have better service in a different part of the room, just roll the machine over to them. This has battery backup, so if you unplug it, don't worry, it'll last quite a while on that battery backup. So a trip 5 minutes across the room really isn't going to hurt it. So once you've sent, you're going to want to finish and turn off. And then you're going to wait. In this part, I can't stress being patient enough. Inside the compartment here, there's a power button. It's illuminated green. When you start the closing process or the shutoff process, it's going to turn red. You have to wait until it's completely turned off. So the button will turn white, just like the close poll button. Once it is white, then you're good to remove the stick. If you remove the stick before that, you're going to wipe the election results. The last thing the machine does when it powers off is puts the results onto the stick. And if you remove the stick too early, it doesn't finish that process and it wipes it out. In this case, it is now white. So I can remove the stick. I can put it into the blue USB drive bag. Again, this is in your moderator supplies. It's the last thing in there with your write-in envelope. I don't have one here with me, but just throw the USB drive in there. One of the copies of your tapes is going to go in there. And then just because it's a pet peeve of mine, because I wait to get these back at the end of the night, these have security zippers that have a hole in them. So that way you can feed the zip tie through. So that way, no matter what, if someone tries to get in here, it doesn't open the zipper. We get a lot of these back where people just put the zip tie through the eye here on the end. That doesn't do anything. That's not secure. So please secure them, again, through the zippers, so that way no one can get in. Once we are completely off, we've removed the USB drive, we can start closing up. While you're doing all these steps, you can have your supervisors cut the zip tie off and then get into the ballot box underneath and start emptying it out into the metal security box. So that way you guys can kill two birds with one stone. You guys can finish up the machine all together.
There it is. It was on my podium.
This is the write-in report. So it'll be right behind this bag. So just remember to get your write-in tape into here. Otherwise, your town's going to have to print it out again, and it's a laborious task. Stuff like this. So at the end of the night, this seal, you will have to break it. So this is over your USB drive door. You guys, the moderators, doesn't have a sticker. There is a sticker, going to be a sticker on this that's going to tell you that it's your seals envelope. Again, it will be listed on your supplies. When you rip this off, just make sure that ends up back in here. All your used seals throughout the day should go back in here. And then your new ones, your new clips for the boxes here will also be in here. So that way, if something happens afterwards, we can check to make sure that you guys had the right stuff, that no one broke into or tried to tamper with your things throughout the day. So I believe that's it. We'll switch over. Oh, you want to go through the whole express vote?
Yeah.
Bring that over again.
Required by law. Even though tape was printing, you have to read out the results of how many, you're gonna say, John Brown, 250 votes, Steve Smith, 260 votes. That's the result of the election in your precinct. A lot of campaigns have people there waiting for that information, and they don't want to wait the 30 seconds for it to come up on our screen. They are trying to compile the totals. They're at all the polls. They're campaign runners. Yes. Even if they're not there, though, the law is still on the books. And some of your coworkers may want to know how the voting went that day.
Usually it's for local races. So you'll see people who are running for local races that will come to your polling place and try to figure out how many votes they have. The same thing goes, not very many people run write-in campaigns, but that's why we read out the write-in names too. So your express vote, if it's not set up for you, is going to come into this canvas bag. As I mentioned in the earlier part of the presentation, There is a side pouch, so don't forget about that. It will have your headphones in there as well as the power cord. When you take out the machine, again, if it's still in the pouch, what you can do is you can lay it on its front. The screen is recessed in here, so don't worry about scratching the machine if you put it face down like this. You grab your power cord out of your pouch, make sure that you plug it in, the chunky end into the power block here, and then there's a kickstand on all these. Just pull the kickstand out, and flip it up. Just like the DS200, the express vote will not turn on unless it's connected to power. Tell that it's connected to the power because similarly to the express vote, it does have a green light that shows up and there's a little outlet icon above it. So tell. On election day, you guys will also have a hood that will go over the top of the express vote. This is for voter privacy. Again, for training class, we obviously won't do that, so that way you guys can see it. Also, I'd recommend not putting on the hood until after you turn on the machine, so that way you can work from the side of it. But just so you guys can see what I'm doing, I'm going to turn it sideways. On the left-hand side here, where the keypad is, there is this door, so that way you can get in to the power switch. So there's a little switch there on the left that says on, off. The top is on, the bottom is off. There's also another switch in there that says voter and official. We want to make sure we're in voter mode, and then we're going to press up on the on switch. It's going to make a happy little video game, 80s video game chime. On the door here, there's a little cutout in the corner for this wire to go through. If you don't use the cutout, it's going to pinch the wire and it can affect the functioning of the keypad. Once we're done with that, we're going to remove the keypad, put it in front of the machine so it's easily accessible, and then we're going to watch it boot up. In the setup for the express vote, make sure that there's a traditional DS200 ballot, one that's marked sample there as well, so that way if someone wants to compare their express vote card to the DS200 ballot, they're able to do so, or if they want to read out something before it comes up on the screen, they can do that there as well. I haven't plugged in the headphones yet, but I want to stress the importance of these headphones. Make sure that they're plugged in. If the headphones are not present, this makes this machine very difficult to use if somebody's vision impaired. If you're vision impaired, you need the headphones, so that way they can read out the races to you. It also reads out the actions that you're making going to the next race, so on. So, let's see, what else do we got? If a voter comes in and they have their own headphones, they're more than welcome to use them as long as it has the aux cord. There's no Bluetooth setup on this machine. So, also, if someone comes in and they have adaptive equipment such as a sip and puff device to the left of the headphone jack, there's a jack for that device as well. So that way, if the voter needs it, say they're quadriplegic and they can't touch the screen or the keypad, they can use that to make their choices. Just like the DS200, this machine also has battery backup. Again, it will last quite some time. I don't anticipate you guys losing power, but don't worry, this machine will stay on for, I believe, up to 8 hours. So. As Jen mentioned earlier, this will also take a password. It's the same password as the DS200, which is the, I believe, the second or third form in your moderator supplies. It's also on lime green paper. It is very bright, very hard to miss.
Can you talk a little bit about the keypad, how that has Braille?
Yep.
And all the other features?
Yep. So the keypad here, we don't have to use it right now, but when we're in the process of voting, I'll vote a card with you guys to show you. They can make their selections. There's up, down arrows, select. They can hit home to go back to the beginning. There's volume controls as well as tempo, so they can increase the pace. There's also a screen button in which they can black out the screen so that no one can see what they're voting on at the time. Also, if you're visually impaired, you don't need the screen anyway, so you can just turn it off. All these buttons have Braille underneath them to tell the voter again, if they're vision impaired, what their purpose is for.
There is a repeat button too, because obviously they're listening to audio directions. If they miss the directions, they can hit repeat and it will replay.
And there's also a pause button as well. So if you need to assist them, that you can tell them that they can hit pause and it will stop the reading right where they're at. So. It's upside down. Don't do this upside down on election day. Unless you want a challenge, but I don't anticipate you wanting a challenge. Something that I forgot to mention with starting up both of these is that it's kind of like baseball. It's 3 strikes and you're out. If you get the password wrong 3 times, it's just going to shut off. Don't panic. Just go back to step 1, hit the power button. It's going to chime on again. It's going to do its whole setup thing and then put in the password. Work with your clerk when you're doing this because the characters that you put in briefly show up on the screen. So that way they can check. So when you put it in this case, I put in an I at one point. So the I briefly came up on the screen before it turned into an asterisk to obscure what the password was. When we turn on the machine, it's going to remind you to check that this is the right machine. So it'll say that you're polling precinct. It'll tell you what election this is. In this case, it's general 2022. And then it will remind you that you are plugged into power. Once you hit OK, now voters are ready to come up to the machine. Unlike the DS200, ballots can go in any which way, so long as they're not crumpled, wrinkled, folded. The express vote is a little different. Each one of these cards has a corner cut on the right-hand side. There's a matching corner cut on the opening here. The ballots have to go in corner cut to the right, or else they won't be accepted by the machine. This is the only time where orientation matters for ballots going in. Yeah, it just won't take it. So once the voter comes, they puts it in, the first race is going to come up. Again, this is going to be the congressional race. As Jim was mentioning, they can use the keypad to select what race they want to vote for. They can select what candidate they want to vote for. It is also a touch screen, so they can touch. It prevents overvote, so it will not allow a voter to overvote. So in this case, I've already selected one, but say I change my mind, it's going to deselect the previous one. Touch screen. If somebody comes in and they want to do a write-in, they are going to have to type out whatever choice they want to make, whatever name they want to put in, and then hit accept. They can again use the keypad or they can use the touch screen. In this case, we have a pick 2. Again, if I try to overvote, it's going to tell me that I've already picked 2 and I have to deselect 1 in this case because there's multiple options selected. Every single time someone goes to vote an express vote ballot, it's going to have a summary screen at the end where they can review their work. Again, the express vote is going to read out all their choices to them again, one final time. In this case, I didn't vote the last question. So if I wanted to vote that question, I could tap on it and then make my selection here. If I don't care about it that much, I can leave it blank. I'm not required to vote the entire ballot. If I'm satisfied with all my choices, I can hit next and then hit print card. The express vote's going to print out the card. Again, there is a posting on every single one of these machines that reminds the voter that if they want to check their work, they can put the ballot back in here and it's going to show them that summary screen again. Again, if a voter is visually impaired, you will have to remind them about this audibly, as they will not be able to read that. But if they put it in, again, it's going to show you that summary screen again. Please note, though, it's already been printed. The ballot already has writing on it. It's not a blank anymore, so they won't be able to change any of their choices. Just review it. If the voter reviews it and then they change their mind, they really did want to vote that final question that's on the ballot, they will be directed to go over to the clerk. They'll void out the card, and you'll give them a new card or a traditional ballot if they don't want to go back to using this machine. Make sure that every ballot that is voted on this ends up in your DS200. This does not do any counting. It only helps people mark the ballot. It's essentially a pencil. That's all it is. It's a really expensive pencil. Every ballot still has to go through there, the DS200. So once the voting's done, at the end of the night, this has to be working operational throughout the entire day. So after the polls close, no one's going to use it anymore. That's when you can start turning it off. You're going to want to remove the headphones and put them off to the side. You won't need to do this. All you'll need to do is just take the privacy hood off. Again, I'm trying to show you guys, so I'm going to swivel it around. You can attach or re-Velcro the keypad to the side here. Take your black barrel key. Open up the compartment. We're going to hit that same on-off switch, but we're going to push it down now. So that way it turns off. Again, we're going to line up our wire into the corner, relock it. The shutdown process is much quicker than the startup process. At this point, we can, like I said, the screen's recessed, so we can lay it down like so. Lock in the kickstand. Unplug the power connector. At this point, we can just drop the machine back into the canvas case. Just like with the DS200, in each one of these bags, there's a quick start and closing guide. So just reference this. Again, if you forget everything I taught you guys today, just remember there's a guide or a checklist for everything. So.
Any questions on any of the equipment?
Just about to say, yeah, anything else? Again, equipment, pretty simple. There's always a guide to open it up for both of these.
Thank you. We're gonna go back to my PowerPoint, guys. So that's all the equipment training.
I'm going to go over the remaining paperwork. As I said earlier, guys, provisional affirmation. I had people here that have already done that before. I think you guys need to have a little bit more information on that. So I'm going to do that. So let's just have Jacob's going to put my PowerPoint back up on the screen. And then he can answer any questions at the end, guys. You need to go back and talk to Maria. Okay. Oh, yeah, he's Situate. Okay, that's all right. Yep. Okay, let's go back to the things we need to do. So remember we were talking about affirmations. I gave you the example of Mr. Plankton moving. I showed you how to use find a precinct. And Jacob, what you do with my PowerPoint? Okay. Okay. Let me know when I can go. Okay, so who does an affirmation? It's primarily only voters who are already registered in your city or town when the following scenario occurs. They're registered in your city or town, but they tell you he or she moved to a new address. We already went over that one with Mr. Plankton. Another reason would be a voter is registered in your city or town and inactive appears on the voter file. So they're checking in with the supervisors and they are going to, if they scan the driver's license, it's going to say affirmation form required. If they manually enter, the voter's file is in pink. Why is somebody inactive? They haven't voted in 2 federal elections, or the Board of Canvassers mailed them something and it was returned as undeliverable, or the jury commission mailed them something and was returned as undeliverable. We're now wondering, do they live there? So they need to reactivate their account if they show up. And finally, it's going to be a voter who's registered in your city or town and they told you they had a name change. They either got married or divorced. These are minor changes that can be changed by signing paperwork at the polls. As I said, I showed you Plankton already and how to discover where a voter registered in your city or town already, where they go. So you guys are good on that, okay? All your forms that you use are rubber banded together. So if you have, and it has a cover sheet telling you when you use the form. On your table, I gave you a reference guide. Just have this out. So when somebody comes over to you with a problem, you can see, is it an affirmation or is it a provisional? And I'm going to go over provisionals next. Okay. Okay. Let's see if we can move this ahead. Guess not. Hold on, guys. You might have to do it manually. There we go. So there's all the icons, all the steps for overriding with the address. We already did that. Okay, so inactive, they're going to come over to you. You're going to ask for their driver's license. If you scan the driver's license, it will come up saying affirmation form completed. You know to give them the pink form. If you manually type it in, it will look like this. And that's sometimes what the supervisors see. It's been flagged as inactive by your Board of Canvassers. So the voter is going to fill out the form. 9 times out of 10, they're going to check, I have not moved. Because these people are usually high school students that were, or college students that registered in high school, went to school out of state and didn't vote in 2 federal elections. Or it's somebody that registered in high school and went into the military and didn't register and didn't vote in 2 federal elections. They're now back at mom and dad's house where they registered from, and it's their first time voting. They're going to complete that form. If there's no changes, you are going to bring them back to the supervisors. You're going to have them pull up their file again. They just manually type in the name. This will come up and instruct them, tap anywhere in the pink to the right of the voter's name. If they scan the driver's license, this will come up. Have them tap form complete, and they may check the voter in. This is when it's inactive. There's absolutely no change on the file. That happens, guys, 9 times out of 10, no changes at all. Most of our inactive voters are voters that actually moved out of state and did not cancel their registration. You don't get very many of these, but I need to explain to you what they were. Okay, so the voters are working with the supervisors. They scan them in. They say, state your name and address. They say Sue Smith, 1 Main Street. And they say, we have Sue Brown. Well, that was my maiden name. I got married the end of September. They're going to come over to you. They're going to fill out the affirmation form. You have pulled up their file on your poll pad screen. The address is the same. Date of birth is the same. She's just simply changing her name. Once she fills out that form and signs it, and you sign it, you bring her back to the supervisors, and you're going to say, this voter is all set. You may pull her up under her maiden name. The voter may sign with a married name, and the file will be updated for the next election. Once the paperwork is signed, it's a done deal, but we can't go in real time and change the name on the poll pad. So the boards of canvassers, when they get that paperwork, they will go into that voter's file and update the information. The paperwork, the pink forms, go into your Board of Canvassers bags. They can't make any changes to the voter's file unless they have that completed paperwork with the voter's signature on it. If you have a voter that comes in and comes over to you and says, I'm registered in your city or town. I registered in February and they still have me in my old town. It's been more than 6 months. They would need to do a provisional. The voter file in our poll pads is the most current file. But what if they told you they moved less than 6 months ago? Law requires us to offer somebody a ballot in their previous city or town. So this voter may be coming to you and saying, I live in Cranston. I moved to Cranston in August. I registered, but the file is showing you that they're still in Warwick. Have them fill out an affirmation form. They're going to tell you when they fill it out, how long ago they moved to Cranston. If it's less than 30 days, the guide is going to tell you they have a full ballot in their previous town at their previous polling location. If they checked off that they moved to Cranston more than 30 days, but less than 6 months, they're going to have a partial ballot in their previous city or town hall, and it's a limited ballot. They won't be eligible for any local races. So we use that 6-month time window to determine where they go in their previous town and what ballot they get. More than 6 months, their registration in their previous town is null and void, and they would have to vote provisionally. And what will happen is the Board of Canvassers in Cranston will look through all the paperwork possible for a voter registration. When you tell a voter you're entitled to either a full or a partial ballot in your previous town, highly encourage them to go back and do it. Because if we don't have their registration in the poll pad on election day, we did not receive one. Very, very rare do we ever find one. I would rather, as a voter, get a partial ballot than no ballot at all. And the partial ballot is the top of the ticket. It's federal and state offices, so they won't get local. That's okay. They're telling you they don't live there anymore anyway. So what's provisional voting? Provisional voting is when there's a question on whether a voter is eligible to cast a ballot in the election at all. The voter seals the marked ballot into an envelope with a completed application attached to it. The sealed envelope is then placed in a locked red bag and transported to the Board of Canvassers at the end of the night. The local Board of Canvassers use the information included on the application to investigate the voter's eligibility and then determine if the ballot should be counted. So in your supplies, you have a nice package of this. It looks like this. Inside this bag, you will have the ballot application, and it's glued to a manila envelope, a provisional note, voting information form. This is required by federal law that we give it to every person voting provisionally. You have a poll pad in front of you. Depending on the scenario, you may or may not be using it. The ballot, which you obtain from your supervisors. Also included in your supplies is a page of stickers, because you put a sticker on the ballot so that it doesn't go into the DS-200. Remember, we're questioning whether we have to investigate whether this person is eligible to vote. And then the red provisional bag. So here would be a ballot that I affixed the red sticker to. Who's doing a provisional ballot? Wrong precinct. That you can't find the voter in the poll pad at all. Your supervisor should have looked for this using the advanced search option. When they scan the driver's license, no record found, they could hit manual entry, advanced options, and they can put in the voter's address and search by that, and that will list everybody registered from that address. What happens though, a lot of our voters are using the DMV or online voter registration to register. If that's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week process, it never gets turned off, but there's a 30-day waiting period when you register to vote here in Rhode Island. You needed to be registered by October 9th to be eligible to vote in this election. If you logged on to the online voter portal after that, your active date is after this election. So if somebody's not in the poll pad and they said, oh no, I registered to vote, they're probably pending. Sometimes you have voters that are registered in your city or town and refuse to go to the correct polling location. They like yours because it's closer. Why they do these things, I don't know. So that would be under item number 1. Item number 2, they voted another method. Once you request a mail ballot, your name is flagged as voting by mail. You've chosen another option. You'll have people that will come in and say to you, oh, I got it, but I threw it away. That needs to be investigated. We have to accept mail ballots up until 8 p.m. the night of the election. You have no idea if they're telling the truth or not. You may see emergency ballot processed. That's people that went to city or town hall and voted the 20 days prior to the election. Why are they showing up at the polls? Well, maybe they're checking to see if their name was removed. Or it could be that a voter went into city or town hall with a passport. That's a manual entry. Their name is John Smith. There's 2 John Smiths in the town that are eligible to vote. The supervisors working early voting should have said, what's your date of birth, but they just picked the first item listed, it could have been the wrong voter. Challenges. As the supervisors are checking somebody in, the gentleman says, my name is John Brown. I live at 1 Main Street. You say, that's not John Brown. That's my brother-in-law, and that's not you. Doesn't usually happen at all because voter ID is required in Rhode Island. The voter challenge is the party affiliation. We see this in primaries. You won't have any of that. For a general election, a voter's party affiliation isn't even listed on the poll pad. And finally, identification. As I said, ID is required to vote here in Rhode Island. If it is expired more than 6 months and they have nothing else at home, they will be doing a provisional. Sometimes we have voters that don't want to show it at all. There are people that have voted for more than 30 years without showing ID because it wasn't required until 2014. And they said, well, I voted all those years without it. I don't feel that I should have to show it now. It violates my constitutional right. Perfectly fine for them to cast a provisional ballot, and their identity will be confirmed by the Board of Canvassers in another manner. Remember, these ballots are not going into the tabulator. The boards of canvassers have 48 hours after the election to adjudicate those. The ones that they accept will come up here after the election. They'll be tabulated here and then added to election day results. Yes. Yeah. Correct. No, voters are wearing a mask. So the question was, do voters have to remove their mask? No, voters are wearing a mask for a reason. They may be concerned about getting COVID. When they sign the poll pad, there's an attestation there and they are attesting that is them. And if we find out that they lied, they've committed a felony. So that is covered with them signing on the poll pad. So regardless of whether it was reason 1, 2, 3, or 4, voters must fill out the front of the application. So they're going to fill out the application in the entirety. In box number 8, they're signing, then you are signing. Once they complete the application, you immediately flip the envelope over and you are required to fill in the back. If you don't fill in the back, guys, the provisional ballot is automatically going to be disqualified because you have not told the Board of Canvassers why the person is coming to see you. They don't know why they're going to have to disqualify it. So make sure you flip it over. So the clerk fills in your city or town and the precinct number, the reason why the person is doing a provisional. Item number 3, we use for primaries only. You had to tell us if you were giving them a Republican or a Democratic ballot. So it's not applicable for this one. And then item number 4 is a checklist. Did the voter sign? Did you sign? It's just a checklist. Once you have completed the envelope, give them the information sheet. It is required by law. It has our web address on it. It has our phone number on it. And it lists all the boards of canvassers. It explains to them why they're doing a provisional and if they have questions, who to contact. Also, if they want to know the disposition, most people want to know if their ballot's been accepted or not. It's going to let them know where to log on to get that. So the next 3 slides, guys, in your handout are cheat sheets. I include these in the packet because there's different steps to do for different reasons. I'm going to show on the poll pad an example from each page because there's 3. So the first one would be, and you can see the reason is listed on the top. A voter comes to you, they're not anywhere on your poll pad, they're probably pending. If you pull up their account, it says voted by mail, cannot sign. They requested a mail ballot, or it says early ballot processed, and that would be in blue. Those people, it's showing them, those 2, the last 2, it's showing they voted a different method. They may be challenging that, saying it wasn't me or I didn't mail it back. If that's the case, Jacob, can you go to the poll pad? I'm going to give you an example of a voter that comes in. The first one will be, her name is Sandy Cheeks. And she is coming in because she received a mail ballot. She's insisting that she didn't vote it. She wanted to come to the polls with her best friend because they're going out to lunch afterwards. So she you're going to ask her for her ID, and I want to show you what you will see on your poll pad. So we'll just wait for Jacob to go over to the poll pad and pull that up. Hmm. As I said, it's going to be Sandy Cheeks. We'll just switch over. And this will be the screen, guys, that you see for in front of you the entirety of the day. It's going to say scan barcode or manual entry because that's how you pull up a voter's file. So he's going to scan her driver's license. And you see it says voted by mail, cannot sign. So you can say, okay, Sandy, I see that you received a mail ballot. I'm sure that you didn't send it back. You're going to fill out the application, Sandy. When you're finished filling out the application, return it to me. You fill out the back. According to the directions now, you get a ballot for her. You put a sticker on it. You're going to send Sandy to the booth with her application still attached, completed. Tell her to make sure it's still on there. She's going to mark her ballot, fold it in half, and seal it in the envelope. She's going to return to you. At the bottom of the receipt, the bottom of the application is a receipt. You're going to remove that. This is how she's got a unique number now. She can log on, type that number in 48 hours after the election and find out the disposition of her ballot. Then you're going to have her put it into the red bag. The red bag is got a very tight seal. This is their voting machine, and it's going to be transported then to the Board of Canvassers for disposition. When you have them put it in, as I said, guys, it's a zipper side. This is a very, very tight sleeve. You're going to hold it open, but it does not go very far. When you have them put the application in, you always have them put it in upside down, because if you put it in the correct way, you can rip the application off. That would be an automatic disqualification. They don't know what ballot goes to what voter. So it would just go in here. And you hold the bag for them because it's difficult to get it in. Now it's in, it's not coming out. Every time you do a provisional, you should mark it down on a little piece of paper with a hash mark, because at the end of the night, you're going to go over to your moderator. You're going to have unlock the bottom of the bag, and you have to count how many you did. It's much quicker if you already know ahead of time what you did. So I'm going to give you another example. So that was from the first slide. The second slide will be for somebody who's insists they're registered in your town, but the poll pad says they're registered elsewhere and it's been more than 6 months, so they don't have a ballot available to them in their previous town. Or the voter is registered in your town but refuses to go to the correct location. So we're going to have Mr. Eugene Krabs come in, and he says to you, I'm registered, but I'm not going to the correct place. So here's Mr. Krabs. If you pull him up on your screen, you scanned his driver's license, says wrong location. He's already told you he's not going there. So you're going to get the application, say, Mr. Krabs, fill out the application. He fills out the front of the application. You flip it over and you fill out the back. There is an additional step now. You must do something on his file. Remember, Sandy already said she voted. If you and I vote a ballot into the machine and they pull up our file, it will say voted. He's voting provisionally. It's a form of voting. We need to flag him as such. So tap anywhere to the right of his name. We're processing him provisionally. Now there's his file with the provisional banner on it. Tap accept. Mr. Krabs is going to sign. He's accepting that he's voting provisionally. He's told you he won't go to the right place. He hits done signing. You're going to put your initials and then you hit submit. Then done. Takes you back. Now you're going to get a ballot, put a sticker on it, send him to the booth with a manila envelope with his application attached, have him mark the ballot, fold it in half, bring it back to you, give him his receipt, and have it placed in the red bag. Why did we have to flag him as voting? If we didn't flag him, could he get in his car and drive to the correct location and vote? If he tries to do that, when they pull him up, show it again, Jacob. This is what the supervisors would then see. Provisional. He did so that's a form of voting. Okay, so the last person we're going to use, it's going to be a manual entry, even though you have the driver's license. It's going to be SpongeBob SquarePants. Mr. SquarePants comes to you and says, I was checking in with your supervisors. I refuse to show ID. I've been voting for 50 years and I don't feel that's legal. Okay, you're going to give him the application. He's going to fill in the application. You flip it over, you fill in the back. You go to your poll pad. You don't have ID, but you have his name, address, and date of birth. You can do a manual entry and type in his name. If it's a common name and more than one shows up, like John Smith, match the date of birth under each file to what the application said. In this case, there's one SpongeBob SquarePants. He's in white. He's in the correct location. He has the legal right to put a ballot into the DS200, but he doesn't have ID and it's required. Type anywhere to the right of his name, and then his bigger file comes up. All the way down at the bottom, it says provisional. Tap it. Why is he doing a provisional? No identification. Once you choose it, it goes gray, hit apply again, and there's his file with the provisional banner. Tap accept.
Just to step in, every single
Yeah, I was
voter,
gonna tell
as
'em.
Jen was going to tell you, sorry, but has that little provisional button on the bottom. Sometimes the supervisors see that and assume that everybody's doing a provisional. That's not the case. The only time it's a provisional is when you see that red banner that's on the screen there, okay?
We don't know which voters ahead of time are not going to give us ID or are going to challenge their party. So it has to be on there in case you encounter it. So he signs the poll pad, hits done signing. He swivels it back to you. You put your initials and you hit submit. Hit done. Now you get the ballot, put a sticker on it, send him to the booth. He marks it, he folds it, he seals it, he brings it back to you, give him his receipt, put it in the red bag. Just showed you 3 examples from each page. Obviously, there's other reasons, but the steps are exactly the same. So when a voter comes to you, you just need to figure out what page and follow the steps, because you would never remember everything I just told you. I give you the cheat sheet. Are you comfortable with that? Good. So if Mr. SpongeBob SquarePants, we were doing this at 8 o'clock in the morning, he shows up at 7:30 at night with a hat on, glasses, and goes to another set of supervisors, and because he's been thinking all day, I don't trust that provisional process. They're not going to count my ballot. If he tries to check in again, it says provisional. It is a form of voting. So like I said, voters that are checked in with the supervisors and go and put a ballot into the machine, if they came to try to vote again later in the day, It says voted next to their name. Provisional voting is a form of voting. Their ballot may or may not be counted. The boards of canvassers will investigate that and make a determination. Okay, Jacob, we can go back to my PowerPoint. Any questions on affirmation or provisional? Basically, you have to speak to people. The Board of Elections is required by law to do a signature match. Voters are encouraged, if they don't have any idea, if they really want their ballot to count, they should show up within the 24 hours after the election at their Board of Canvassers with some ID, and then it would be approved. But that defeats the purpose of what they stood for. So if they don't do that, they are required to by law then to match the signature on the application to the signature on file. And there's sometimes one signature, there's sometimes multiple signatures. If you disaffiliate, that's in there. If you registered in the old fashioned way, like I did, pen to paper, that's in there. If I go to the DMV and do something election related, my electronic signature comes over. So they have other ways. And if they can't do a match on that and they deny it, the voter always has the opportunity to challenge that. That's why it's done at the local level, because the challenge would then be reviewed here at the Board of Elections. We may make the same determination, but by law, we must do that. Yep. Yeah. Say, well, if it look, if they think their signature has changed greatly, I would recommend you may want to go over and see them and have a discussion and show some identification. They may also, we have some people too, where they're very nervous about showing identification because they're afraid of voter fraud or somebody stealing their identity for other purposes. We're not capturing any of that information, but something may have happened that they're very fearful of that. So as I said, in the affirmation packet, right on your table, you should put this little quick reference guide so that if somebody comes over to you, you go, oh, their reason is on affirmation or their reason is on provisional. So you know what paperwork to grab. If you have this all spread out in front of you, it can be a little overwhelming. If you have the reference guide in front of you and then you speak to somebody, your supplies should be readily available right next to you in your blue box. If you have plenty of room, feel free to take it out so it's even more accessible, but it can be a little overwhelming. Any questions on that? Jacob, this is frozen. Okay. No, okay. As I said, sticker, guys, it can be white with red or red with black. Upper right corner, that is stopping that ballot from going into the machine. Okay, so we did all this. So as I said, there's a difference, which is what the quick reference guide is actually just showing in a different format. Who does an affirmation? They're listed as inactive. The voter moved from one address within your city to another address within your city. They've already registered there. The voter has legally changed his or her name. Minor updates that are completed by filling out an affirmation form. That voter's ballot goes into the machine for tabulation. Special exception, voter moved less than 6 months into your city or town, but it shows their previous. Have them fill out an affirmation so you can let them know if there's a full ballot for them in their previous town in the polling location, or if there's a partial ballot for them in their city or town hall. Who votes provisionally? They're not registered to vote in your city or town. You can't find them. Or they're registered in your town but refuse to go to the correct precinct. They applied for a mail ballot or they voted during the early period. You won't have any party affiliations, only in the primary. They don't have ID. The wrong voter was checked in. I gave you the example of the young man going to early voting, and they, did I give it to you? So yeah, he went to early voting and they checked in the wrong person. Okay. Those things will be investigated. Other items that you're going to use in the course of the day, your discrepancy report, that should be handled on your table. You're going to need that. You're going to report missing supplies, inaccuracies on the poll pads, problems with returns, DS200 or express vote problems. Also, if you need extra long power extension cords or power strips and you don't have any, you need to write that down because your board of canvassers get a copy of this and they'll need to know that for next time. If you don't tell them what you're missing, they can't replace it. Don't tell me that you think that we should supply coffee and donuts. It's on every single discrepancy notice. We don't do that. You have a checklist, each position does. So there's one for the clerks, one for the moderator, and one to be shared by the supervisors. Opening during the day and closing, you just check off the boxes as you complete your assignments, sign the last page and put it in the board of canvassers bag. Voided and manual count bag. You're going to have people that make mistakes, especially overvotes, happens frequently, as Jacob said, in town council races. There'll be a lot of people running for those and it says vote for 6 and they will vote for 7. So people then usually do want to get a fresh ballot. We always recommend that they go to the booth and fill in a couple more ovals to keep the secrecy of their original vote. Most people will say to you, I don't care if you see. That's fine, but we always offer. Write void in big letters, put it in your void bag, and issue them a new ballot. At the end of the night, when the polls close, you do have to count how many are in there because you're going to record it on your election certificate. Manual count ballot bag, moderators, you have that. When would that happen? As Jacob was saying, let's say you had to use your emergency compartment and you had to feed ballots into the machine after the technician fixed it. And at the end of the night, you've sent your results. You check that compartment one more time and you see a ballot sitting there. Static electricity occurs. What do? Oh Lord, I've already sent my results. I've already filled out my equipment, my election certificate. You're going to put it in a manual count bag and you're going to write on there why it's in there. Other reasons, moderators, remember I was telling you, you must stand 5 feet away from the machine going, wait for the American flag, wait for the American flag. Sometimes when you walk away, a voter will go up there with that ballot that they put a check and an X. They put it in. Nobody told them to wait for the American flag and they walked away. You can put that into a manual count bag because it's clear to us what the voter's intent was. They put a check or an X in the oval. They just didn't fill it in enough. A bipartisan pair here will examine those. And if we can determine the voter's intent, that will be included in election day count. Voter decides not to vote after check-in. Doesn't happen usually during a general election, guys. It's usually a primary. They get the ballot, they go over, they come back and they say, my candidate's not listed on here. Well, they requested the wrong party ballot. And once they choose that, we can't undo that. It's illegal. They get very frustrated and they say, I'm not going to vote at all. If you can, have them fill this out because you already checked them. They were already checked in by your supervisors on the poll pad. The number of people that check in the poll pad should match the number of ballots that went into the machine, but they're surrendering their ballot. If they refuse to sign this piece of paper, write it up on the discrepancy report that somebody checked in and that they decided not to vote so that we know why your election certificate is not correct. Observers are allowed in the room, but not in the voting area. You or party checkers cannot wear any political materials or influence a voter in any way. If you're in a high rise that has a community room, if there's a TV in there, it needs to be off. The residents can't come in and use that. Discard any campaign material. Voters are coming into your building. There may be campaigns out there passing out paperwork to them, trying to get them to vote for them. They may bring it into the polling place with them. They cannot leave it in the booths. They do. So your supervisors have been instructed to look in the booths through the course of the day, throw that material away, and to make sure there's a pen in each booth for marking the ballots. Voters are allowed to wear political apparel if they vote and leave the polling place. They can come in with a hat, a shirt with a picture of their candidate on it, a sandwich board for all I care. They check in, they vote, they leave. They're going to be 50 feet away from the building campaigning. Voters with an obvious medical disability or a letter from a medical provider can be allowed by the moderator to go to the front of the line. Do that discreetly. I had a moderator tell me that they did that and other people that were waiting started yelling at them. Phone calls are prohibited inside the polling place unless by the moderator. We did include clerks to be able to do that, guys. If the moderator is outside having a problem with campaigns and says, call for help, obviously we'd want the clerk to do that. Text messaging in the polling place is fine if it doesn't interfere with the election or your duties. I hate that I must say this because I don't like it. It's abused greatly. Step away from your duties if you have to contact family. I know life goes on even though you're working an election, but frequently voters tell me they go to check in with the supervisors and they go, oh, wait a minute, I just got to finish sending a text. No, step away from your duty so that you're not interacting with a voter while you're doing this. Any surveying of voter opinion or campaigning must be done more than 50 feet from the entrance. Also, the base that the poll pad is attached to is a battery base. And at 11 o'clock in the morning, there's a green cord in all the green cases that they came in, and the poll pad needs to be attached to the battery base. It will maintain the poll pad for the entirety of the day. It will slowly charge it up, but not greatly because it's not an Apple product, that cord. But there's 2 ports on that battery base. Your supervisors like to plug in their personal devices into the other port. That is a big no-no. Absolutely no way should they have their phones, their iPads, or any other device plugged into the battery base. Other things that you should look for that they shouldn't have on the table is drinks. No coffee, no water, no Monster. When they have it, it gets spilled on ballots, shorts out battery bases. People get thirsty, it needs to be on the floor at their feet. So it's 8 o'clock. The polls are now closed. Jacob was showing you in your demo on the machine. This is what you will see. Hopefully, all of you will successfully send results. He told you if it fails, if somebody has Verizon, go around the room looking for the sweet spot. 5 tapes, guys, plus a write-in. As I said, stand there with scissors when it says end of report, cut. Because now they're all separated because they're all going in different bags. What happens if you fail? This is the screen that you see. You get the hand, failed, results not sent. So it automatically tried to connect. That's time number 1. See if anybody has Verizon, unplug the machine, move it over to where there's the most bars, then hit retry. That's time number 2. See if it sends. If it doesn't, spin it and hit retry again. If it doesn't send, then call your technician or call the Board of Elections. You do have hotline numbers from us, and we're going to give you other ways of shutting down that machine. You're going to have to call your Board of Canvassers too and let them know that you tried to send 3 times and it failed. Could be because of the weather. We did have 95% of our polls had reported by 8:45 on the primary day. But if you remember, on primary day, it was pouring rain, it was humid, it was foggy, and that can affect a cell signal. Some of our locations are also built like fortresses. We use churches, schools. Some of them are really old brick buildings with no windows. If that's the case, try to roll it over to a door so you can try to get a signal. Here are where all those tapes go. You can take this page with you to remind you. The 0 tape and the first results tape stays together. That's going to be your longest one because it shows that you started with nothing and what you ended with. That is a total overview of the election. The Board of Elections needs that. The second tape is going to go into the blue pouch with the USB drive. The next goes in the Board of Canvassers vinyl bag. 1 is required to go on the outside door of the polling location. Old time law still on the books. And finally, 1 goes in the voted ballot storage cases. And that is on the table. So here is the case that all the ballots go in. You may have more than 1. Once they put the ballots in there, you're going to seal it with an orange seal. Orange seals are usually in the empty case. Check that in the course of the day. If you don't see anything in there, call your Board of Canvassers. These are the bags, vinyl bags that you're going to begin filling. you next. You're going to remove that USB drive, guys, once all the tapes have print and the results have sent. If they haven't sent, we've given you different directions on how to close down the machine. You still have to put your USB drive into that USB drive pouch. There's a little yellow seal inside the pouch. You've already recorded it in the course of the day on your serial and seal certificate. Put that USB drive in there, lock it up, because that's going to be going back to City Hall. If you have more than one DS200, close one, then close the other. You're going to put the ballots into separate storage cases. You don't intermingle them, and they should be labeled A and B. You're going to verify your provisional ballot count. Remember, I told you every time you did a provisional, you should probably make a hash mark so that when you walk over to your moderator at the end of the night, they're going to unzip that bag. You can say to them, I have 14 in here. And you're just going to verify that you've got 14 manila envelopes. Once they verify that, you're going to zip, they're going to zip it back up. They're going to lock it. You're going to go back and you're going to put the red provisional tab on it. So here's the red provisional tab. You already recorded the numbers on your seals and serial certificate earlier in the day. It's found in the seals envelope. Finally, you just have to complete your paperwork. You can gather this information, guys, in the last 5 minutes. So it is 7:55. You got 5 minutes to go. Polls are fairly quiet at that point. I would tell my supervisors at that point, can you guys please count the open ballots that are sitting on your table? You can even give them a little piece of paper and say, count these for me. If there's 17 and somebody comes in, cross it out and put 16, because when the polls fully close and everybody's gone, they need to give those to you and you're going to put them in a bag. Also ask them, say, can you please write down your check-ins for me when the moderator announces the polls are now closed and there's no one else to check in. You need that. So that's a 7:55. You're walking over to your moderator with your red bag. Say, can we please count these? Because you need to record the number in that bag on your election certificate. You have the void bag. There's a box, see where it says the number 12, and you have a copy of this on your handouts, guys, on your 4-pack of handouts. That's where you record your voids. If there's no one else in the polls but you workers, you're probably not going to have somebody come in and have a void. Right next to the number 12 is the number 14. It's now 7:59. The polls are closing in 1 minute. There's no one else in there. Ask your moderator to hit that little blue square so you know how many express votes there were. And now it's 8 o'clock. Ladies and gentlemen, the polls are now closed. There's no one else to be checked in. No one's waiting. You're going to get the public count. You now have everything you need to fill in this form within the last 5 minutes of the election. Item number 1 is the public count. That was the number of ballots that went into the DS200. You just got that from the machine. Number 2, the number of provisional ballots in the red bag. You just counted them. Number 3, number of ballots in the manual count bag. Moderator has that manual count bag, get that then. Usually it's 0. You're going to add those and get a total. Note on the far left, it's just the number of express votes and the number of voids. You're just recording it. Below on line 4, in my scenario, I had 3 pairs of supervisors. Those were their check-in counts. I added them up and it came to 892. I had to record my provisionals one more time, and then I added those 2 and it came to 903. So the number of voters that I processed matched the number of pieces of paper that were processed in my precinct. Okay. What if it's off by 1 or 2? Break out the Kleenex, cry. No, that usually means your supervisors did not complete a check-in and issued a ballot, or the voter was issued 2 ballots. When that occurs, they're sometimes kind enough to come back with it, and sometimes they're not. You would write that on a discrepancy note. This is the bag for the unused ballots. Remember, you asked your supervisors, can you please count those up for me? They're going to come over to you with them at the end of the night. They're going to give you the count, fill out the bag, seal it, and it goes back into this big blue tote. In that blue tote, you will still have ballots that are shrink wrapped. We give you lots of them. You're not going to use all of them. You don't have to do anything with them. You leave them in there. So then you go to your vinyl bags. I just showed you those. Start with your Board of Elections return bag. The first one completed election certificate. You have 2 of them. You just completed one. Transfer the numbers onto the other one and put one of them in the bag. Signed totals tape from the voting machine. That is the 0 connected to the first total. Remember I said lay them out on the table and sign. They're signed, goes in the bag. Official serial and security seals tracking form. You pre-filled the closing seals on that in the middle of the day. Moderator, clerk, pair of supervisors signed it, put it in the bag. You have 2 copies of those. One goes in this bag. Security seals envelope. That's that small manila envelope that says seals. It's got all broken seals in it now. And then the discrepancy report. That's like a carbon, guys. The top copy goes in our bag. The carbon version goes in the Board of Canvassers. So here's the Board of Canvassers bag. You can see it's longer. What's the first item though? 1 completed election certificate. You already did that. 1 completed serial and security seals form. You already have that. Copy of the totals tape. It's just the total and it's signed. That goes in there. Affidavit of the supervisors. You guys are hunting for this. It's in the supervisor's bag. They are signing, attesting to the best of their knowledge. They gave 1 ballot and 1 ballot only to the voter. You can have them fill this out at 7 o'clock and put it in the bag. Precinct keys, do those last. Remember you had checklists. You have 3 of them. 3 packets signed, put them in here. Voided ballot envelope, clerks, you have that. Discrepancy report, this is the carbon. Affidavit of a voter requiring assistance forms, those are from your supervisors. If grandma came in with grandson and he's over the age of 18 and she made him come to the booth with her, they had to fill out a form. He had to attest that he wasn't her union rep or employer. When that's completed, the supervisors asked for the moderator to come over and sign it. Once it was signed, they should have given it to you to put in this bag, but they like to hoard them. But now you know where they come from. Voter affirmation forms, the pink forms you used to change a voter's address, name, or reactivate an account. Change of party, NA, put not applicable. You're not going to have that. This is a general election. Write-in report, that's that 6th tape that prints from the machine. That's when voters didn't like the candidates and instead wrote in Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, used to be Tom Brady, Jesus ranks up there, and some other names. Completed paper ballot applications. I'm going to tell you right now, that's NA. That would be if our poll pads blew up, you'd have to whip out a paper book to check people in and they sign an application. Hasn't happened yet, so I'm thinking you're not going to need them. And surrender of ballot if somebody checked in and changed their mind and were kind enough to sign the form. It's usually only in a primary. Here's that seals envelope, guys. See how it says seals on it? That's what you're looking for. In the morning, it's full of nice seals. At the end of the night, it's full of broken ones. You're going to seal up the supply boxes. So your supervisors put posters up in the morning. They're blue and white. That means they're from the Board of Elections. They're going to take those all down, put them back in the blue supply box. They have a big vote here and some signs on the front door of your polling location. They're going to put them back in there. In the red box, they're going to put their MiFis. They've disassembled them, turned them, the poll pads. They disassembled them, put them back in the case and put the cases back in. Most of our locations have either 3 or 4 poll pads. Seal those with those blue seals that you already pre-recorded on your seals and serial certificate. And then Nick has told you there's 4 items that you bring to him via a supervisor. He makes sure you guys have that list in that big blue and clear vinyl bag. Other things that you will bring back after your runner takes those 4 items: the Board of Elections vinyl return bag, sealed with everything in it, the Board of Canvassers return bag, your voided ballot bag, that's got voids in it, your manual count bag, even if it's empty. The blue sealed pouch went earlier. The red bag went earlier in Cranston. If you're not working in Cranston, you're bringing all this back. Your voted ballots in a storage case, and then the Board of Canvassers supplies. In cities and towns other than Cranston, moderators, you load that up into your car. The clerk follows you. You never, God forbid, you got T-boned on the way to the town hall. Then the person behind you can call 911. Plus, they can get all the election supplies and return it to the board. Also, no one can ever accuse you of throwing something out the window into the woods. Okay. The MiFi is going to be given to you. It's going to be in a box. And that's what the supervisors used to connect the poll pads. Frequently, they have it over by the DS200, so no one forgets, because when you close the machine, you'd see it. Cranston, that's brought back with your earlier runner. This all stays in the polling location. Blue supply box, red supply box with the poll pads in it. The DS200, it's empty, nothing of value in it. The express vote stored in its bag. Voting booths need to be broken down. You just, they're all connected, plugged in to electricity. Just unplug it, lay it on its side. The legs pop out, they store underneath. The sides flop down and it locks like a luggage. That's it. Any questions? You can turn off that recording, Jacob. It's a lot, guys. But I do